everybody, Noe with Wild Oats Sewing Company and
Bianca with Wild Oats Sewing Company.
Welcome. We are going to do a little how to make block 16 for the Northern Colorado Shop Hop 2025 Stars Over Colorado. Our block is number 16, which is this guy right here. Here's a better little zoomed in picture. This block right here. What you will get from us is the pattern here, and then we have got all of our fabric already cut per the requirements right here. I am going to let Bianca take over on cutting, and then we're going to go over to the sewing and pressing area, and that's where we're going to start. Ready, Bianca?
Yes. Right. Okay. So I have all my pieces here cut out to the specifications of the pattern here. To make things a little more easier for myself, I went in with the first couple pages of the pattern. There's like a color chart, and I numbered all of my pieces with the corresponding numbers to the markings on the fabric. So like fabric number 1 is SB, which is sky blue. So I just went ahead and did that for all of my patterns. So I will be referring to these colors as kind of like dark brown, the light golden brown, the medium golden brown, and then we have the white and the gray. So part 1 is to cut out all your pieces to these specifications right here on the top of the pattern. And then part 2 is going to be making those half square triangles. So we're going to kind of put them together now. So the first one is 1 white 4-inch square. So now the second half square triangle is going to be 3 4-inch white, and it's going to be 3 4-inch medium golden brown squares, which are here. We're going to set that off to the side. Our third half square triangle is going to be the 8-inch medium golden brown and the 8-inch light golden brown, which is this big square and this big square. And we're going to set that off to the side. Now to make half square triangles, we are going to make a line diagonally from one corner to the next using a friction pen. You could also technically use a regular pen since you won't see it in the final product, but it makes me feel better if I use a friction pen. So take a ruler and line it up from one corner to the other corner and just make that line. One corner to the other corner, and then we can set that off to the side. And we're going to do the same to all of the half square triangles that we have. I like to mark on the light fabric just so you can see it better. All right, I have all of my half square triangles marked. Now we're going to go over to the sewing machine.
So part of sewing is making sure that you have the proper tools, or at least knowing how to use what you have to get your sewing to come out correctly. So pretty much every sewing machine will come with just a standard sewing foot. I am sewing on a Brother NQ3550W, which is Bianca's new sewing machine. And she does her 1/4-inch sewing with a 1/4-inch foot. And hers has a little fin here, which is a guide. So when this is snapped on, you push your fabric up against the little guide here, and then you get a 1/4 inch when you're sewing just a straight stitch. We are going to be using a 1/4 inch foot without the guide since we will be sewing half square triangles. We are going to line this up against this line here so that we get our 1/4 inch when we are cutting. If you do not have a foot with the 1/4 inch mark or the 1/4 inch guide, this machine does have a piecing stitch which allows us to use our regular standard sewing foot. It moves the needle over, and then you use the edge of this foot as your guide. Okay, so now we have sewn all 5 of our pieces together. So the line that we drew here that we use as our guide, we are going to cut from corner to corner. Okay, so now I'm going to go do some pressing. Okay, so I have now pressed all of my half square triangles. This is personal preference. We have ours pressed open. Per the pattern, that is the preferred method, but you can also press them to one side if that is your preferred method. So I have all of these pressed open, and now I am going to cut all of my smaller ones into 3.5-inch squares. So I am using my Tucker trimmer one to do the small ones, and I am going to use the dotted line because we're doing 3.5 and not a 3. So I line up my little dotted line there, take my rotary cutter and trim that down, flip it, match up my lines again, and trim. So another tool that we like to use here at Wild Oats is called Grippy Spray. So you spray that on the back of any of your rulers that do not have that kind of slide around, and when it dries, it does not slide around. It adds grip to ruler. So here is the side with Grippy. This is the side without. It's a non-slip coating spray that you can use on any ruler. It is not permanent, so it does wear off over time. So if it's just something temporary that you need, it is a great option. Okay, so now we are going to take our two 8-inch half square triangles, and we are going to trim one down to 7.5, and then the other to 4.5. So 4.5, I am going to use my same Tucker trimmer one. And so there's my 4.5-inch square. And then for the larger 7.5, I'm going to use my Tucker trimmer 3 because this is bigger. Alright, so now we have a 7.5-inch half square triangle, a 4.5-inch half square triangle, and 8 3.5-inch half square triangles.
Now we're going to move on to section 3 after you finished all your half square triangles. Section 3 is snowballing your corners. So there's just 2 we have to do. First one is going to be your 3.5 by 10.5 light golden brown piece, which is this one right here. And then the 3.5-inch square medium golden brown piece, which is this one. And they will fit exact like that. So we're going to put this off to the side. Our next one is our 4.5 by 7.5 dark brown piece, which is this one. And then we're going to put that with the 4.5-inch square light golden brown piece. And again, they should match up exact on the edge. And we're going to put this one off to the side. Now, just with half square triangles, to snowball, you're basically going from one corner to the next and kind of adding a little pop of color on the corner. So you want to do your diagonals just like a half square triangle. So that's what we're going to do here. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is to really focus on the diagram and to match up your pieces the way the diagram is. So this is the light golden brown and the dark brown piece. So I'm going to put it sideways like it says in the diagram, and I'm going to lay this on with the diagonal facing the same way as the diagram, just so I don't mix it up and accidentally sew it the wrong way. So I'm going to keep that off to the side and do the same with this one. I'm going to put that diagonal piece in there. And then I'm going to line this up just like in the diagram, making sure that I have it the right way. Right, for snowballs, you don't have to do a 1/4 inch on each side. You're actually going to sew directly on that line that's on there. So I'm going to change my foot out. I could use the regular multi-purpose foot that the machine comes with, but I really like an open toe foot. It just gives you really great visibility when you're doing things like this. So I'm going to use an open toe foot. Again, we have our pieces here, making sure they're all nice and lined up. And then we're going to sew again directly on that line. So before I cut anything, I like to double check that I sewed them at the right angle. So again, following our chart, it's going to be opposite for you, but just making sure that it looks exactly what your chart looks like. Make sure you sewed the right angle, and it looks great, looks perfect, and we're going to trim this to 1/4 inch from our sew line. So we have both of our pieces now trimmed 1/4 inch from our sew line. We're going to go press these open, and then we'll go to the next step, which is assembling everything together. All right, so now that you have all of your half square triangles, your snowballs, and then all the other pieces you cut, we're going to use the lovely little diagram chart at the bottom of your pattern. And we're just going to put it together on here and then sew it. So here's kind of it all laid out. It definitely looks very strange because obviously it's not sewed together, so the seam allowances aren't there. But you're going to sew this together using the little arrows that are on the chart on this first section. So you're going to do this one, and then this one, and then you're going to finally put it together here. So let's start with this bottom piece. It's this big half square triangle, and then this these two large pieces. It says to sew them together here, so that's what we're going to do to start with. So we sewed this block together. Remember, we're going to press our seams open. And then I have a little tip for you guys. On this section right here, there's a little star between these two half square triangles. That means you're going to sew that together first before you sew on this extra piece. So I know we didn't start with a piece that was a star, but sew all your star pieces together first. Little tip. So now we're going to start with these two half square triangles. That's what we're going to sew next. So we sewed this piece together now, so now we can sew these two together. We got these two pieces together now. Now we're going to jump down here and do these two, and then we're going to add this piece onto the bottom to do this 3-piece. So we got this piece sewed together, these 3 pieces. Now we're going to sew these 2 side pieces on. Alright, so we got our middle square pieced here. So now we're going to go ahead and piece these 2 together. So now that we got this piece, we're going to sew these 3 together into 1 piece. So now we got this 3-piece set here. So now we are going to sew these 2 together. Now the last section we're going to sew together on this first part is going to be these 4 down this row.
So now that we've got all this done here, we should have 8 individual pieces here. So we are now going to start assembling the stars. So we're going to sew this piece to this piece here. So now we have this piece here sewn together. We are now going to sew this piece here, and then we're going to sew this piece to this. Okay, so now we are down to these 5 pieces. We are now going to sew this piece to this piece. So we are down to our 4 pieces here. I am going to sew this piece here, and then this piece here, and then we'll be back. Okay, so we are down to our last 2 pieces. I've sewn these 3 pieces, and now I've got to sew this last piece on. So we have sewn our last piece on, so this is what you should end up with. I will turn this so that it is right side up for you guys. This is going to be block 16 of the Northern Colorado Shop Hop 2025 quilt, which is located somewhere on this page, which is this block right here. So hopefully your finished block looks just like this.